I pulled this ugly orange Naughty Pine coffee table out of someone's trash, and I'm about to do what I can to give it a fresh new look and a second chance. Hello, my furniture friends. Katie here from Salvaged by K. Scott. I am a full-time furniture flipper who sort of specializes in saving these filthy, beat-up furniture pieces from ending up in our landfills. And I'm gonna do everything that I can to extend the life of this table. It definitely has a strong farmhouse style to it already, so I'm going to lean into that. I'm not 100% sure where that's going to land me just yet, but I am thinking of taking some inspiration from this stunning but $1,500 reclaimed wood coffee table from Pottery Barn. So first things first, let's take a closer look at what I'm working with. This is a solid mass-produced Naughty Pine coffee table from probably somewhere in the 90s or early 2000s. Pine is a very soft wood, so it marks easily, and this table is definitely marked up. But what that means is that pine really lends itself to more simple, rustic styles of furniture anyways. Now, this table is disgusting, so it needs a serious wash. I'm using some eco-friendly TSP alternative that is going to break up any grease that's on here and help me cut through the rest of this junk. I wanted to break this down and take everything apart so that I could sand each piece a little bit easier. So I removed the bolts that were holding the legs on and then just followed these screws around the backside of the apron to get that off. Along with the screws though, it was also glued, so I grabbed my little painter's tool and hammer and just very gently tapped in between the two surfaces to break that seal. If this hadn't have popped off as easily as it did, I would have grabbed my heat gun to warm up and melt that glue a little bit. There's a lot going on this top. Like I said, some of this is the original style of the table, but a lot of it is just obvious damage. I do want to keep the rustic feel, but I also want to remove all of this orange finish and smooth things out a bit. So I put an 80 grit screen abrasive on my Orbital sander and started grinding away. The finish came off of the first board really easily, but when I moved over into the center boards, I instantly had particle board or press board magically appear in front of my eyes. This solid pine table duped me. The legs are solid wood, the apron is solid wood, the boards around the outside of the top are solid wood, but these guys in the middle are not. They're super thin pine veneer over top of particle board. I mean, who even does that? I've torn through the veneer. There's no coming back from that. And with all of the other damage on the rest of the top, I have no other choice really but to keep going and smooth this out. So while I kept sanding away at this, I started brainstorming how I was going to recover. I can't stain particle board. There's no way I'm spending the time or money to replace the veneer, but I have done some pretty convincing faux wood paint techniques on furniture before, and I ordered a kit specifically for that from a company called Rustic a little while ago for another project that I didn't end up using it on. So I guess that's the new plan. Paint it to look like wood instead of completely stripping and refinishing the actual wood that's attached to this mess. I'm going to fill in a few of these square stab marks. They're just too deliberate looking for me, and then I'm going to set this aside to dry. Since I'm painting now, I don't need to completely strip all of the original finish off of everything. I moved on to just scuffing up the shiny finish on the base and the legs. My sander is flat though, and these pieces are not, so I used one of these foam abrasives from Surf Prep to help me out. They make these in a bunch of different sizes to fit pretty much any sander, so if you do a lot of this kind of sanding, I would definitely recommend checking these out. I wiped up any sanding dust with a damp microfiber cloth and then grabbed my trusty can of clear shellac to seal up those particle board spots on the top. This stuff is super prone to absorbing moisture and swelling, so I need to seal it back up, kind of like a candy coating of shellac. If I didn't do this step, that particle board is just going to continue to pull moisture from my paint, top coat, just out of the air and keep expanding and swelling over time. While the shellac was drying, I got all of these Retikit products unwrapped. I've never used this stuff before, but I've been wanting to check it out for a long time. So when they started shipping to Canada, I ordered a few things. They sell all of their products individually, so you can mix and match what you need, or you can get kits that have all of the components you need to create a specific wood look. I'm going to be using their French oak kit today, which comes with their wooden primer, 2 different colors of gel stain, these rubber graining tools, a brush, and a top coat. The wooden primer goes on first. This is the light wood version, but they also have a few other wood tones. It's a water-based paint and primer that actually has real wood fibers in it. It's low VOC, so it doesn't have much of an odor to it. And all I'm gonna do is brush this over all of the surfaces and make sure that my brush strokes are going in the direction that I want my new wood grain to go. This first coat has pretty good coverage, but I think I'm going to do a second layer. The instructions say to let each coat dry for 2 hours and to make sure that you wash your brush out immediately after each application. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'll come back in 2 hours for my second coat. This is what my finished second coat is looking like. It's still not quite full coverage over the legs and the apron, but I think that's just gonna add into the faux wood effect. And since I had the table sanded all the way back to bare wood, I think that first coat absorbed in there a little bit more, so it has slightly better coverage. I can still see the texture difference between the particle board and the wood veneer, but it's not too bad, and I think it might actually look good if I leave it alone. This is gonna get another 2 hours to dry, and I'll go wash out my brush again. Before I start on the gel stain, I want to mask off the boards on the top that are going in different directions so that I can keep all of the new grain looking tidy and going the right way. And then I'm just going to bust open this barnwood color gel stain and brush it over the vertical boards that I've masked off. stuff stays wet and pretty mobile for a long time, so there's lots of opportunity to play around with it and figure out how you want it to look. I dragged the graining tool through the stain quite a few times, trying to get a pattern that I was happy with. And every pass that I didn't like, I just brushed it back out so that I could try again. I was having some problems though, because the boards had some pretty good dips in them. So when I was dragging the tool across, it wasn't making contact all the way across the surface. That was definitely a little bit frustrating, but once I had things looking okay, I left that to dry and moved on to the legs and the frame. I couldn't use the graining tool on these curvy surfaces, so once I had the stain on, I just used the brush to get it all going vertically down the leg, and I really liked the look of that a lot more than the graining tool. So once these sections on the top are dry, I'll come back and move my tape around and do the other direction. And maybe I'll just put another coat of the gel stain over this stuff that's already grained and just see what it looks like. No big deal if it doesn't look good. I can just paint right over it and start again. Whoop. I just saw that as I was about to wash out my brush. Okay, that's no good. And it's already starting to dry. Shoot. Okay, that's better. Maybe. Maybe that's better. Maybe it's not. Okay, we gotta watch the edges for little drippies. Good to know. What's going on over there? That side's fine. Okay. That's a little messy too. Oh boy. Okay, I'm gonna let it dry, wash out my brush, and I'll come back in a couple of hours to keep playing around. I moved all of my tape over so that I could do the horizontal boards and brushed on some more of the gel stain, but this time I decided to stick with that straight brush grain. So I just kept pulling the brush back and forth through the gel until it almost started to set up a bit. I found that doing that until it started to seize made it look a little more like an authentic wood texture instead of just brush strokes. Okay, I've officially decided that once this is dry, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna just paint over the wood graining sections with some more of the wooden primer, and then I'll continue on with just this brushed out wood grain effect going in the opposite direction. I like that better. But the legs are all dry and looking good. kind of hard to see it on camera, but it does dry just a tiny bit darker than when it's wet. I ended up also figuring out that if I took a little bit of stain on the tip of the brush and kind of randomly dotted it around and then brushed it and blended it out again, I got these slightly darker patches that sort of look like there might be a knot just under the surface, and I thought that added to the effect even more. All right, all of the barnwood gel stain is good and dry, so now it's time for the white gel stain to go on top for one more layer of dimension. I added some fresh tape again, so I didn't end up with any weird spots of brush marks going in the wrong direction, and did the same thing with this color, except with a much lighter hand. This is kind of like highlighter. I don't want a ton of it on there, just a little bit here and there. So I brushed it onto each section and then used a clean microfiber cloth to wipe it back a little bit until I liked how it was looking. This is a paint technique that's totally up to your own artistic interpretation. There's no real right or wrong way. You can keep playing around with it until you think it looks good. This is what I've ended up with, and I love it. The damaged boards where I sanded down to the particle board really look like authentic reclaimed wood. It's just light and bright and ready to seal. I threw down a drop cloth and laid everything out to spray the top coat. You can definitely brush it or use a sponge top coat applicator, but you know how I roll. I'm doing it. This triple teak that came with my French oak kit says it's a super durable epoxy substitute, so I'm excited about that. This is the satin sheen, and it says that it has high solids in it, so it builds up kind of a triple layer of protection with each coat, I guess. I mixed it really thoroughly to make sure that all of the components were evenly distributed in there, and then I just poured some into my pneumatic spray gun. I ended up spraying 3 coats of this, again, waiting those 2 hours in between each coat, and it felt really smooth and soft after each layer, so I didn't see any need to do any sanding in between coats at all. I left that to kind of cure up overnight, and when I came back out the next morning, I was so happy. I just want to clean up the mess on the bottom of this before I put things back together, so I'm going to quickly brush on some of this leftover paint from another project. Here's another look at the table that I pulled out of the trash, and this is what I made with it. It wasn't the tactic that I was originally planning on, but I got there nonetheless. My Pottery Barn inspiration was $1,500, and all this table cost me was a few hours of work over the weekend and an $80 faux wood paint kit. I am pretty sure you're going to see me using the leftovers of this Retique kit on another project very soon. Thank you so much for watching along with this makeover today. I hope it gave you some ideas to use on your own DIY projects. I'm gonna leave a few more faux wood finishing videos here if you want to keep watching me do this kind of effect with some other products, and I will catch you all next time.